Yay. Okay, welcome. We are live, right?
We are live. It says meeting is now streaming live on Facebook, and there's a big red button that says live. We are live.
I don't see the red button. That's why I got confused. Okay. All right. Welcome. I am so honored to have with me today Dee Manuel Cloud. And we are, we had a conversation last week that was just amazing. And I really wanted to support her in her just upcoming offer, which is a masterclass, but just to also support her with her amazing message and just her amazing spirit. So she is a force and wise, a wise force.
I received that. Thank you, Padma.
Okay, so do you want to tell us what you do? What you,
Yes. So I am Dee Manuel Cloud. First, thank you, Padma, so much for allowing us to have this conversation on your platform and giving my masterclass a voice. I am, by definition, a breast cancer recovery coach. And what that looks like is because of the work that I do in the world, breast cancer survivors are overcoming the fear, trauma, and suffering of breast cancer to creating a life of peace, joy, and fulfillment so they can truly thrive and not just survive. I like to say I help breast cancer survivors make the rest of their life the best of their life, right? And because I am a woman and because we are multifaceted, we know that about us, right, Padma? That we are capable of wearing more than one hat at a time. We're capable of having more than one experience at a time. And so one of the experiences that I go through as a woman, as a breast cancer survivor, and all the things is depression. I am I manage depression, and I started managing depression after, well, I always say after May 20th, but that's not really true. I think the depressive symptoms set in right before that. My mom died on May 20th, 2019. And she was diagnosed with bladder cancer. And she was diagnosed in January and she was gone by May. So it was a really quick illness. It took her really fast. And because of that, depression set in for me. And it wasn't me who noticed, right, that I started having these depressive symptoms. It was actually my wife. And we were in a marriage counseling session working on our relationship and our marriage. And the counselor asked my wife a question, and my wife said, I just don't think that we can really focus on us right now because she's dealing with her mom's illness. And the counselor asked my wife, another question, and I don't remember the specific question. I just remember my wife saying, I think she's depressed. And it was a shock to me. It really was. Because I didn't know that I was having depressive symptoms. I just was going through the motions. I knew that I was stressed. I knew that I was sad. And I knew that managing my mom's illness and subsequently her death were really, really hard on me. But depression, and honestly, because I felt like I had already gone through so much with battling breast cancer twice, with owning my sexuality and the people that shunned me because I am a lesbian, or the friends that I lost, the family members who stopped communicating with me. I felt like I had been through enough. And then on top of that, there was the divorce from my first marriage. So I felt like if I could get through all of those things and not have depression, why is is it showing up now? So it didn't register for me that I was slipping into a depression. And I want to shed light on that because I think that sometimes the fall into the decode, for what I call it, can be so gradual that many people don't realize they're suffering. And depression looks like more than just being sad, right? Depression looks like irritability. It looks like lashing out at the people who are closest to you. It looks like aches and pains and headaches and stomach aches, and it looks like losing interest in things that you once enjoyed and loved doing, and the struggle to maintain your appearance, the struggle to shower, the struggle to clean up your surroundings and your areas. Like it looks like a multitude of things. And so that's why I created the masterclass, Breaking the Silence, um, Managing Depression and Embracing Self Care. Because November was a particularly hard month for me, managing depression. I like to say it was a wash because I didn't really produce anything in depression in November while I was managing my depression. And I reframed what it means, what it looks like to be in depression, because one of the things that I do is meditate. And when I was sitting in my quiet meditation, and I keep this next to me all the time now, this came to me and I wrote it down. And it says, stop feeling guilty for prioritizing your mental health. Rest is a requirement and not a reward. Honor yourself for knowing when it's time to rest. And that's important, I believe, because I think that so often, especially for women who are entrepreneurs, we get into this cycle of go, 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 produce, 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 that
Yes.
we don't take time to stop and rest, and we don't schedule our rest. And so before you know it, we've hit a wall, right? And our body is crashing, our mind is crashing because we need to rest, but we don't take the time to do that. And when we don't, depressive symptoms can set in.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And you've said so much, and I
I
really
said a lot, didn't I?
all really good stuff. Because depression is so complex, right? It's so complex and it can come with grief, it can come with circumstances, and then it can come by itself. And so what I love that you shared is that the awarenesses kind of came slowly. Right, because sometimes that happens, and then you have the reflection of somebody that you love. So when you meet with somebody um, that has depression, or when you're supporting somebody who may or may not know, or who maybe knows and is struggling, what do you, what is one of the things that you offer them?
One of the things, the first thing that I share, and it's is there's no reward for suffering. Right? And I think that a lot of us just tend to suffer in silence. And I know that for myself, and I think that many women probably battle this as well, is that I was very hesitant to receive help,
Hmm.
because I thought that it meant that I was weak, or that I couldn't manage my emotions, or that I couldn't handle this without help. And like I shared with you before, I had gone through so many challenges in life that I felt like this is just one more thing and I can get through this like I did all the other things. But what it's important to understand is that when depression sets in, it really is a chemical imbalance. That your brain chemicals are not functioning at a level that they normally would. For whatever reason, your body chemistry has changed. And I like to say that when my mom died, my heart broke.
Mm.
And when my heart broke, it changed the chemicals in my brain. And I think that it's important to understand that our central nervous system, when we're born, right, we're this little embryo, and all of our nerves are in this one little embryo. But we don't think about the fact that when we grow, this central nervous system grows with us. And now it spans our entire body. And so at the core of that is your gut, right? Things that we're eating, things that we're putting in our bodies, all of those things matter. And so, to answer your question, when I'm working with someone with depression, the first thing I want them to know is there is no reward for suffering. So, you don't have to suffer in silence and you don't have to suffer alone. And the second thing I want them to know is that our body, what we're doing to our bodies, the way we move our bodies, what we're putting in our bodies, and all of those things matter. And so I try to put together a comprehensive plan for that individual that one lets them know that they're not alone. We're traveling this journey together. And two, that lets them know that depression, just like life, ebbs and flows, right? And that even though you're in a low moment right now, trust that the high moments are coming.
Yeah. Yeah, and I that's one thing that I really relate to and understand is the body component and the nervous system component, and also that just sometimes, like, my understanding of the nervous system is that we really are, um consider the brain as an end organ, right? That all of the sensory input goes in to the brain and sometimes doesn't always get to the brain. So sometimes things are unconscious, right? That we
Mm,
don't have this kind of brain that is tracking everything. Our body's tracking everything, but not always our brain. So things happen that we're not always aware of, getting out of balance, right? And maybe even we don't notice that we're not sleeping well until we're not sleeping
hmm.
well for a while, or that we've lost our we've changed our relationship with food, right? We're no longer interested in food that nourishes us. We're eating food just to get through the day, or we forget,
Just for comfort, right? It becomes a comfort thing.
or we forget
So
because we're drinking caffeine or going, or yeah. So I think there is something about the body and how to, I mean, that's the work that I do because, right, that I'm very passionate about supporting people to transform their relationship with their body. And that is part of it. It's like noticing that your body is part of your mood, right? That your body and how it's moving and what it's doing, and yes, what you're feeding it and what it's taking in is part of how we're experiencing the world. That we forget that. We kind of think
absolutely.
that we have these weird beliefs that we're somehow our brain is in charge of everything. And I also really loved just what you said about um, suffering, right? That there is this kind of, we have to do it alone, or um, one thing that I find difficult is that we can't be weak, right? That weakness
Mm.
is like the worst possible thing in our culture. Like if you're weak, you're a victim. And I'm like, well, sometimes life is just horribly difficult. It just is. And so we can't all be strong all the time.
I don't think we're meant to be,
No.
right? And I think that there is such beauty in vulnerability. And I didn't know that in the beginning. It took me some time to be comfortable with my vulnerable emotions. And that's one of the other things that I share when we're discussing depression, because I think that sometimes with depression can come shame, right? And there's this shame that I'm dealing with this mental health issue. Whereas if I break a leg, it's like, oh, hell, we even tell people break a leg, not literally, but there's this hero syndrome that comes with breaking a leg, right? And they put a cast on it and we sign it and we help you with whatever you need. And, we're there for you and we're cheering you on. But when it comes to mental health issues, it's like, what's wrong with you? I want to remove words like crazy, and unstable and all those things. I want to remove those words because our mental health is just as, we should take just as much pride in maintaining and managing our mental health as we do our physical health. We are proud to brag when we run some miles or we um, go to the gym or we're eating healthy, all the things that we're doing to nourish our physical body. But we hide when we're managing our mental health, right? Like, I don't want anybody to know that I have brain fog or that my brain feels like there's a bunch of scribbles going around in it right now, or that I can't process a thought, or that processing thoughts makes me want to cry. We don't want to talk about those things. And I want us to be able to talk about them with as much confidence as we do when we talk about maintaining our physical body.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I also think that it's the more we um, allow ourselves to express it, then we can also ask for help, not just from, the professionals, but from the people in our immediate environment, right? That we can ask for help. We can tell them what's going on or even help educate them
Absolutely.
when they don't understand, right?
Absolutely.
That vulnerability really does breed compassion, right? That there's something about when we're really, really strong and vital, sometimes we forget, right? We lose our connection to our humanness, right? And that the vulnerability really allows us to be human and, right, human with ourselves, right? Because I also think that um, that self-blame and shame perpetuates, right? Because part of it is physiological, but part of it is also that we can't get out of the processes, right? That there's like a loop in our mental process, right? There's a repeat that is really hard to stop. And people like just positive think your way out of it, but it really does take some kind of skilled intervention sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I'll be sharing in my upcoming masterclass taking place this Thursday, December 14th, 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We're going to be dropping the link, but that's those are the things that I'll be sharing in my upcoming masterclass, the practical things that you can do to embrace self-care and understand that you are embracing self-care for yourself and you're not just wasting time or killing time because you're resting and nurturing your mind, your body, and your spirit, right? And that was one of the things that I was able to transform during my November downtime is I could hear, and this is going to sound a little woo-woo, but I could hear so plainly the voice of God, the universe, the spirit, the source, whatever you call it, say to me, how amazing is it that you can take this time to rest, right? Like, embrace that you have this time to rest and recover and come back even better. And it reminded me that there was a time when I had a depressive episode that lasted 3 months, like where I just could not produce. And this was during that time where I was trying to finish my book and I had this book deadline and all these things going on. And what I didn't know at the time that I have since learned is that the more I try to produce when I'm in that state, the further I'm pulling myself down because my body is saying I need to rest, right? And I'm trying to force my mind and body to still produce. And so, if you don't take anything else away from this conversation with Padma and I, I'd like for anyone that is struggling to manage their mental health and their depression and anxiety to understand that sometimes your body is just saying, I need to rest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love, and I know we've talked about this before, but there is definitely this, as an entrepreneur, as a woman of color, just this um, have to keep going, have to keep
Yes,
going. There's
yes,
this a little bit of needing to stay with, not even it, I mean, I do think that we at a certain point we're trying to um kind of earn our place at the table, right, as women, um, in a very masculine way. And it's like this, that it's not really how our bodies are designed. Our bodies are designed to rest, right? We have cycles of rest. We have cycles of productivity. We have cycles where we're caring for others. We have cycles where we're yes, and that honoring those is really, really important. And I love that idea because even as you share, it's like I can almost hear you know, you're as a human, as a woman, like your journey as a woman in a woman's body and how different that is than, you know, maybe there's less. I mean, and I think men also need rest, but there's maybe more need for us to honor that downtime so that we can.
absolutely.
And I love when you
Absolutely.
share that story, that having that rest really gave you, right, room to then come back and be in the space of creating and moving forward.
And I think that one of the things that you just said that was very profound for me was feeling like we have to operate in a masculine way. And you and I had a mentor that finally introduced doing business to me in a way that wasn't so masculine, that it was okay to tap into my feminine energy. It was okay to not feel like I have to produce 100% of the time, who taught me to schedule rest. Right now, I'm still struggling to schedule rest. Be honest about that, right? Because it at 54 years old, it is hard to unlearn the things that you've learned,
Mhm.
right? And one of the things that I learned is that if you're not producing, then you're not a productive citizen of society,
Yep.
right? And so there's this need to be a productive citizen and to do my share in the world of not just working, but of supporting and helping other people because I believe that we're all put here to help other people.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. And I also think that, you know, there is this, we do need balance, right? In the Eastern, there's that kind of, there's masculine and feminine Shiva Shakti, like the left brain, right brain, that we need the balance and that we can't. And it's also, I think the feminine is much more of the creative space and it needs rest. It needs non-structured time. It needs time outside. Um, it's more of the kind of internal healing space, but we
Mhm.
can't go out into the world and do big things without having that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's what's important for women to know, women entrepreneurs, mothers, um, wives, employees, sister, whatever hat you have on, know that we're not meant to be producing in those hats 100% of the time. And that we have to, even if you have to get to a space where you are scheduling rest in your calendar, then do what you have to do.
Yeah. And that creative, I do think there's, I love what you said about the voice. Because I do think that you get, I mean, I would call that our, well, there's many ways you could see it. It's body wisdom, intuition, higher self, inner self, God self, um, that we need some quiet in order to hear it, right? Because if we're just
Absolutely.
talking, if we're just going, one, we're too tired and there's just too much noise in there. And so there
Oh,
is.
thank you, Padma. The noise. Yes, I think that's a great segue into how to shut off the noise, right? It's important to shut off the noise. And the way I do that is by spending quiet time in meditation. And people think that meditation has to be 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour and all those things. But I take 10 minutes each morning to just sit in silence and check in with myself, right? And ask God, okay, God, where do you want me? Where do you need me to be? Right? So that I am tapping into my higher self, my God self, my inner being to know seriously what I need right now and where I'm supposed to be headed. And I'm telling you that quiet time and quiet self reflection is so peaceful and so powerful that I wish everybody would just take those 10 minutes a day to be with yourself. And then listen, it's like anything else. The first time you do it, it's gonna feel weird. It won't feel comfortable. You're gonna feel like you're being it's stupid and all the things. Get that. I promise you, you'll get to a space where you're hearing from your higher self.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I've had people say to me, I don't like who I am when I sit, or I don't like my thoughts, or I
The
can't.
thoughts. It's the thoughts.
And I do think that there's a breaking in period. And sometimes I say it's like like a child, right? When you haven't seen them for a while and they just kind of, or when we haven't checked in with ourselves, sometimes we can hear a lot of self negativity. We can hear those tapes that are running that aren't necessarily ours and they're not necessarily true. But then they get quiet and there's something underneath that. And I think it's the magic that takes us out as from being a human doing and just a producer and a doer and a head down to really being able to see who we are and the beauty of who we are and connect to our spirit and our soul, that it's really magic. And I do think that sometimes our injuries, our depression, are is really calling us home so we can listen
Absolutely. I
and
love that.
reconnect to
One
that space.
one of the other things that you just said that was very profound for me is that when we don't take that quiet time, we basically have this loop playing in our head. And usually that loop is negative, right? And it takes some time to shut off or to disrupt that negative thought pattern and to really tap into gratitude and having a grateful mindset 24/7 to where even when things are not going your way you say, you know what, I'm thankful because they're going the way they're supposed to, and there's a lesson here for me, there's a learning opportunity here for me that I probably wouldn't get if things were going well. I dare say that most of our learning experiences come from those hard times.
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah,
Unfortunately.
yes. I mean, there are times I remember when I was younger, I would be like, "Oh my God, I have it all figured out. Life is amazing." And then wham, something would happen. And it just kept happening. And after a while, I was like, okay, I am not going to say I have it all figured out because I obviously don't.
I
There's
don't
more
think
to
we
learn.
ever figure it all out, right? Like, I
There's more
think that
to get.
or at least every day that we're here, we should be learning something new. There should be never a time where we feel like we have it all figured out because nobody knows what tomorrow holds and what new lessons I haven't learned. We don't know what we don't know.
No, and we're always growing. And I do think there is wisdom that comes. I mean, yes, sometimes I'm like, okay, the 20-year-olds are very, there's so much energy and there's so much passion, energy, and and gorgeousness. But I'm like, I didn't trust myself when I was when I was 20. I didn't know who I was. I didn't have confidence. I was so insecure and so quiet and just didn't know how to be in the world. And it's like that just comes from, yes, from lots of challenge and
Lots
moving
of
through,
challenges and
moving
learning
through it,
experiences. I agree.
learning and finding compassion for ourselves and others. And yeah, it's beautiful
Yes. Compassion and empathy, and most importantly, for ourselves,
for ourselves.
right? Because we tend to display those things for other people that we don't, at least that's been my experience. Let me not lump everybody else into the same box with me. But it took me a long time to give myself grace, compassion, and empathy. There was always the shame, the guilt, the frustration. That was always the negative thought patterns that circled in my mind, like just from divorcing my first husband and the guilt and the shame that came with that, owning my sexuality and the guilt and the shame that came with that, the changes in my body from having breast cancer twice and the shame that comes with that, right? So it was just always this negative thought pattern until I decided to disrupt it. And I didn't disrupt it by myself. And I think that that's another important piece to take away from this conversation is that support is so necessary. And I heard Brene Brown quote something that I want to, God, please don't let me mess it up. But she said, in the absence of love and belonging, there will always be suffering,
Mm,
right? And so support is so important, especially when you're on this depression journey, because when you don't enlist support and you don't enlist help, you only have your own negative thoughts to sit with. You don't have other perspectives to remind you how great life is for you, and that right now you're just experiencing an ebb and not a flow.
yeah, that's beautiful. And Dee, I just want to thank you for you've always been such a bright light and passionate about serving others and being there for others and supporting others. And I really just appreciate your light and your brightness in this world.
Aww, thank you.
We will put the information for the masterclass down below, but I'm just so grateful to have these conversations with you and grateful that that women get to have your support because you really are a generous and loving soul.
Right back at you, beauty. I am always so enamored with just your grace,
Mm,
right? You're such a graceful being and so compassionate and so loving and just this gentle force,
mm,
right? Like you're like the quiet storm. And I love that about you because like myself, you support women in being in tune with themselves, knowing their bodies, knowing when there's a change in the body because you're so in tune with yourself, right? So you can pick up when an illness is or there's something not quite right here. And so thank you for the work that you're doing in the world and for the lights that you are
mm.
always whenever I come across you, just the quiet storm. I think that'll be my nickname for you now, the quiet storm.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. And let us know if you have any questions. And if you watch the replay or you're here live with us, I didn't even check the live chat. We are so engrossed in conversation. So
Yes.
see you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday. Thank you so much.